New report released yesterday by the Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services revealed that migrant children separated from their parents under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy last summer exhibited a particularly high number of mental health challenges. According to the report, many children already distressed in their home countries or by their journey showed more feelings of abandonment, fear, and post-traumatic stress symptoms than children who were not separated from their parents. The report, which is the first substantial accounting by a government agency on how family separation has affected the mental health of children, was based on interviews with about 100 mental health clinicians who had regular interactions with the detained children. The report shows that the longer children were in custody, the more their mental health deteriorated.
Mike, something that was predicted from the
something
very
that's so obvious.
I have to tell you a couple of things. First, if you read that report and don't tear up reading it, there might be something wrong with you.
That's
internally.
Right.
The other thing is the discussion that you just had, that the two of you just had. It is so positive in politics to hear candidates talking about God and faith and humility and salvation that I would urge you as a citizen of this great experiment that's called America to continue talking about this in public, because it's uplifting, it's educational and instructional. And now my question, which sort of feeds into everything you've been talking about, as well as the report that Mika just read about. And it is this. You've been going across this country for months now. You've probably picked up that the country is kind of divided, that people are anxious about who we are and about our future as a republic. The country was divided and endangered 51 years ago this summer because men were being killed in a war built on a lie 51 years ago. We survived that in one sense. But the repercussions of that war, I think, still exist today, 51 years later. So as you go through the country and you think about the political divisions and the cultural divisions that separate us, if you're president of the United States, what do you do about perhaps the #1 priority for the next American president? To heal this country?
Well, first of all, I think we have to recognize that there is greater capacity for healing and for unity among the American people right now than there is perhaps among the members of the American Congress. You can say that around certain issues where Congress is paralyzed and hopelessly divided, but the American people are actually pretty unified in demanding action. Something like background checks on guns is a good example. But of course, this is deeper than policy. This is about who we are. Are we one country or not? And I see a lot of hope here, too. It will not be easy. And look, one of the things you learn as a mayor is that your job, when you're elected in an executive office, is a big part of your job is simply holding together the population that you're in charge of when things tear at it. And it's incredibly difficult and incredibly important. But there are also some of the very things that are dividing us right now could be things that unify us. It's why my approach on climate is a little different, for example. I think we can unify the American people in a national project that all of us are proud to have something to do with, including people who have maybe been made to feel like progress on climate would be at their expense, like rural America. I think that there are so many issues like this where if we get it right, and this is where I part ways with maybe some of my fellow progressives running for president, that we can, even on something that's been divisive like healthcare, if we get it right, we actually bring Americans together around this. But it's also why the stakes are so high if we don't. Because if we polarize Americans even further in the course of trying to deliver good policy, then we're adding fuel to the fire of this division. One other thing, just real quick, I want to mention. Here's what I think is different from 51 years ago. 51 years ago, you saw young people take to the streets marching against their parents. They felt that their parents' generation had sent them to war, and it was a clash of generations. When I see a lot of these mobilizations right now, around climate, certainly around guns, led by young people, as was the case in the 60s. But this time, I see their parents and grandparents at their side cheering them on. I see it at my events all the time. A grandchild will drag their grandparent to an event to come and see me, or vice versa. And what I see there are the makings of a generational alliance that could allow this moment, this test, this tough, tough time in American life to actually be something that brings us together, if we have the right kind of leadership.
You've given us an inspiring vision for healing America's wounds at home and helping the polarization. What is your vision for a more moral foreign policy for America going out into the world?
This is so important. So every time that America has felt that it could shortchange its values in order to advance our interests, we've been wrong. Sometimes it took a while to catch up to us, but eventually it did. The world, I think, actually needs America right now more than ever. You look at what's going on in Hong Kong, you look at the way that Saudi Arabia has been acting, and a dozen other places around the world, and I think among other things, it reflects what happens when there is a vacuum of American leadership. The world needs America, but it can't be just any America. It can't be an America where the U.S. president is copying some of the same tactics of dictators and declaring unfavorable press coverage to be the result of the press being the enemy of the people. If we are going to champion human rights and democracy, and eventually, by the way, climate action, if we're going to champion those things around the world, first of all, we've got to do it at home. And if we don't, I don't think anybody else will. We're needed more than I think we've been in a long time, but we've got to actually be practicing what we preach.
Mayor Pete, people are just focusing, like you said, now on the campaign. If they want to get involved in your campaign, what do they do? Where do they go?
Well, PeteForAmerica.com is a great place to begin. We're asking people to text Pete to 25859 so that we can know when we're in your neighborhood. That's where a lot of our policy information is. But
now, that's a text and not a website, right?
That's right.
It's a joke. Give me the numbers again, Pete. What?
25859. The team's drilled that into me pretty well. But PeteForAmerica.com gets richer by the day in terms of the policy stuff we're adding on there. Also, just a great way to make sure we have a way to keep in touch with you. Look, organizing, campaigning at this stage is about relationships, and we need to know where our supporters are, and then we're going to be asking our supporters to reach out to other people who maybe haven't been brought in, haven't been included in this campaign yet, and help us grow that base and grow that coalition.
All right.
And
Thanks
if you follow Jason, you can find out about the rescue dog. I love your rescue dog. I have several. Mayor Pete Buttigieg, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Pete.
Great to have you
great to see you
on the show. Still ahead on Morning Joe, it seems like a no-brainer, but apparently it needs to be said. Quote, it's time to create a conservative ecosystem that doesn't welcome racists. Tim Carney is here with his new piece that might enlighten. Next on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.